UFC Vegas 25, Reyes versus Prochazka. Very good card. We're coming off of an epic UFC 261 with fans back. This card gonna be at the UFC Apex, so no loud fans screaming there. It's gonna be quiet like most of the pandemic fights have been. It should be a pretty awesome card though. There's some really good matchups on it, especially with that high level light heavyweight matchup in this main event. Make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's start it off with the first fight of the night. This fight here, featherweight division, Luke Sanders and Felipe Colares. Interesting fight here with Colares coming off a loss to Montel Jackson, Sanders to Nate Menes. I got to give respect to both guys. Even in defeat, they did show good attributes, and we'll talk a little bit about the stylistic matchup here between both of these fighters. With Colares, he's a pretty decent striker, I will say. He leaves his chin a bit high, but does have an iron chin. He took a ton of punches in his fight against Montel Jackson and was able to eat them and keep coming forward and fighting. He didn't go down, I believe, once in that fight, and that's pretty impressive. The chin that he does have, he has a lot of heart. And he is a pretty good grappler. 5 wins on the record are by submission. You look at Luke Sanders, a southpaw. I would say he's a pretty solid striker and definitely has some power in his hands. He likes to close the distance with hooks normally, and he does have 3 losses by submission, which is notable in a fight here with Colares, who I do think is probably going to look to get this fight to the mat. I think he's going to be pressure heavy and will mix it up with the strikes a bit, but I think the goal is going to be getting this fight to the ground with Luke Sanders. How easy is it? I don't think it's any bit easy, but 27-year-old Colares, I think he's constantly improving. Luke Sanders at 35. When fighters pass that 35 mark, especially in the lighter weight classes, they do tend to slow down. He's coming off of a loss. I believe Felipe Colares wins this fight, and I think he does so by submission or a decision here, but I am definitely leaning submission. Let's check out the odds for this fight right now. See if we can find them here. They still not up. There's no odds for this fight yet. Okay, this is a late edition, so there's no odds yet. I have a feeling Sanders is going to open maybe as a favorite, but I could be wrong here. We'll see. I could see him at minus 140, maybe minus 145, but I feel like Felipe does win the fight, and I do think he'll be a dog pickup. I think he'll be a bit underestimated because he's not as technical, but he's very gritty. I like him to win this fight. Next fight on the card, KB Bular and Andreas Michailidis. If you remember, Michailidis just had a really weird fight in his debut. He fought Modestas Bauskas. He fell back in the open cage after the round ended and the ref stopped the fight. He was hurt, but I don't necessarily think that stoppage at that moment was the right call. He does have a decent skill set, and he's fighting KB Bular. Got smashed in his UFC debut against Tom Breeze. I'll be honest. Look at this, the favorite status here, minus 250 to plus 200. I actually think these odds are fairly justified by how KB Bular looked in his debut. He does switch his stances up, and he does have some decent kicks. But overall, when you see him fighting, it's very low hands, open for punches, and really lacking in boxing efficiency. I feel like Andreas Michailidis here, definitely the bigger puncher of the two, throws big power with his overhands, has 6 wins by knockout on the record, with Bular's last fight being his debut, was a quick knockout loss to Tom Breeze. I feel like Michailidis could potentially repeat it here. I feel like he'll end up getting the win as well. He holds the center of the octagon well. I feel like he'll come forward and land overhands. Bular's hands are very low. I do think they must have addressed it, but if that's your habit and that's what you do for years and years, it's going to be very difficult to break. And he did get dropped by a jab as well. Michailidis by knockout. I like him at the minus 250. I also like the knockout prop bet when that's released. It's not out just yet. You can see if the odds are differing. Not really. About minus 250, ranging around there with the favorite Andreas Michailidis. I think he is a lock pick, and I think he's going to knock out KB Bular. Let's get to the next fight on this card. Sam Hughes and Loma Lookboom. You remember Loma in her last fight? Yeah, she beat Jean Euphray, which, I mean, that's a decent win. She's a pretty good fighter, especially with her Muay Thai. Loma Lookboom is no joke. Sam Hughes' game as well, coming off of a disappointing loss. That against Tisha Torres. The eye stopped it in the corner. I believe she couldn't see or something. The eye socket blood was pouring in, but it doesn't matter. She's fighting Luke Boom here. It's a difficult fight for her. When you look at Luke Boom, she's an aggressive striker who's very good in the clinch. You look at her opponent, Sam Hughes. She likes to move forward, but I will say her movement is not elite level. She's very forward backwards. Not a lot of angles being cut. I think that Loma is better in the clinch here. I do think we have a fight that could go the distance, and I'm going to pick Loma Luke Boom to win this fight by a unanimous decision. At the minus 350 price you're seeing on screen there, personally would skip the bet. I don't have enough faith in Loma to beat Sam Hughes, most definitely. I do think the style matchup is good, but who knows who shows up here. I'm not betting on this one, but I do think Loma Luke Boom gets a victory by unanimous decision here. Let's get to the next fight on the card. This fight here, Kamaka III versus TJ Brown. Kamaka had a good amount of hype coming into the UFC. Fought Tony Kelly, had a back and forth fight that was awesome. And then in his last fight, Jonathan Pearce put it on him, was badly beaten on the ground in that fight. He takes on TJ Brown. He's coming off a loss to Danny Chavez. And prior to that, Jordan Griffin did catch him in a submission. It's an interesting matchup between these guys, and it's definitely competitive action, at least earlier on. With Brown, you have a guy who is a southpaw, likes to switch the stances up, but prefers the southpaw stance. Does have some decent striking, and he is pretty fast. He has a lot of speed. I think he's going to look to set up his takedowns with the strikes in this fight here against Kai. He does have 9 wins on the resume by submission. You look at Kamaka III, he's a very explosive striker with good kickboxing, but doesn't have a ton of finishing ability. You look, I mean, he has 1 finish, and that's a submission. No knockouts. 7 of his wins are by decision. I think this fight could potentially go decision. It's a difficult one to pick because I do think there's value in the underdog in TJ Brown if he can get Kamaka to his back. Looking at the age, 30 and 26, I think both are still in their relative primes. TJ Brown being the bigger of the two, 5'9 to 5'7, also brings in a bit of a reach advantage. I like TJ Brown for the upset here. I'm going to pick him by a decision over Kamaka. I wouldn't say he's an absolute lock dog, but I do think TJ Brown goes out there and wins this fight, and I do think there's value in the underdog in this matchup, and I have him winning it. Good card so far from what we've just covered. We now go to this fight, Gabriel Benitez and Jonathan Pearce. Another excellent matchup on this card. There's going to be a lot of action-packed fights, I feel, on this event. Hopefully, knock on wood, I don't jinx it, but I do believe there's high potential for that. Gabriel Benitez, Jonathan Pearce. Odds here strongly favoring Benitez at the minus 210, Pearce at the plus 175. I want to note something. The height difference is 4 inches. Granted, the reach not so much, but that is something to note. I mean, the leg length advantage will be in favor of Pearce. Benitez known for some devastating kicks. If you know Gabriel Benitez, he's dangerous. You look at his striking resume, he has 8 wins by knockout, 11 wins by submission. So he also does bring in a pretty good grappling game. Very nasty with his low kicks. Javier Mendez claims he's the hardest kicker he's ever worked with. I don't know if he's just hyping him up, but I do think he's a very legitimate kicker, and he kicks very hard. He cut his shin up bad in that fight with, I believe, Omar Morales. You look at Jonathan Pearce, he's pretty good with his kickboxing as well, and is very tall for the 145-pound weight class. He likes that southpaw stance. He does switch it up, though. Brings in 8 wins by knockout here and a solid wrestling ability. In this fight here, I do think it's going to be competitive and entertaining. It's going to be a very tricky fight to pick. I mean, I was leaning Benitez, but something's pulling me to Pearce the dog. I think this right here, there's a live underdog in Jonathan Pearce. I really do believe he can fight. And he proved that in his last one against Kamaka. He was able to beat him up. But is he at the level where he can beat Gabriel Benitez? I'm feeling that Benitez gets a TKO here late. I think this fight could go either way. If you're going to throw money down, I might lean you towards dog or pass, just simply because I think Pearce being the bigger man could be a legitimate threat here for Benitez. We're picking Benitez. I'll see how I feel after the weigh-in, seeing them sized up against one another. Skill for skill, Benitez is the faster striker and the better striker, but Pearce awkward a bit at times, does bring in good wrestling. It's a tricky matchup, but I will ride Benitez as of right now for the win at -210. The next fight on the card, Randa Markos and Luana Pinheiro. I'll be honest, this Luana Pinheiro girl is a hot prospect. A lot of potential, 8-1 as a pro. You look at Randa Markos' record, it's gotten bad, 10-1. So she's got an even 500 record at this point. Not the best looked, but she does have a good amount of high-level experience. She's a long time, I would say, journeyman fighter, or journeywoman rather, in the division. At one point was a top contender, but getting older at 35 now. She has 0 wins by knockout, so we know she's not going to bring much punching power. But 5 submissions on the resume, and she's also never been knocked out herself. You look at Pinheiro, 5 wins by submission, 2 by knockout. Is a good striker and actually moves pretty well and has a judo background as well. I mean, the 5 submissions on the resume. She's good on the ground but brings punching power. I like Pinheiro here to win this fight. I don't think it's necessarily going to be submission victory. Randa Markos is very difficult to submit. If this fight could be contested on the feet, maybe Pinheiro could get the knockout here. I think knockout or decision for Luana Pinheiro. I do think she's going to put a dominant display on Randa Markos in this fight. And I like her at the -190 favorite here. All right, the next fight and the first fight on the main card. If you haven't yet, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's get it started with this main card. Poliana Botelho versus Luana Carolina. Brazilian battle here. High-level stuff. Women's flyweight division. I'll say high level, but not the highest of levels as in championship level. But as martial artists, both are good and both are strikers. And I do think this is potentially a fireworks matchup. You look at Botelho, she's aggressive, has a Muay Thai background and a Muay Thai style as well. Lots of power being thrown in her kicks. And she does bring in pretty decent takedown defense. She has power, especially in the women's division. She has 6 wins by knockout out of 8 wins. That's punching, that's power overall. That's his general knockout ability, and she definitely has it. Carolina's rangy with her striking and definitely awkward at times. She makes the mistake of that chin being up high. I don't like seeing that chin up high. I get nervous when I see it up high. I think that she could get caught by a big puncher. I think that her opponent here, Poliana, could be that big puncher. I'm going to pick Poliana Botelho to win this fight by knockout over Luana Carolina. One thing that is also to note, Botelho is taller at 5'8" to 5'6", but reach advantage for Carolina. Still, being the taller girl, I feel like the mistakes are going to get countered. I think we're seeing a knockout win for Poliana Botelho over Luana Carolina in this fight. And it should be an exciting way to start off this main card. Now, the next fight on the main card, Merab Dvalishvili and Cody Stamann. Pumped for this fight as well. It's honestly a similar stylistic matchup, but it's just how they do it is differently. Both very good on the ground. Cody Stamann a little bit more, down to strike, whereas Merab's game plan is I'm getting a hold of you, I'm getting on top of you. He is a freak when it comes to top position and controlling, because you look at him, this guy has 7.71 takedowns per 15 minutes. That's his stat. That is a ton. It's not like Cody Stamann's not a good wrestler. He tends to average 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. The thing is, will Cody Stamann be able to stop the relentless chain wrestling style of Merab Dvalishvili? He's going to look to move forward and clinch up, get this fight either to the cage and then work it to the ground, or get it to the ground. I feel like Stamann can be competitive earlier in the fight, maybe the first round, but the pace is going to be set on him. I do think he could potentially be overwhelmed a bit with the grappling, and I think that we could maybe get some takedowns for Merab, but more so, I could see them clinching up and just Merab putting the pace on him for the 3 rounds. I do think it's a pretty competitive fight at the -240. I do think Merab should win, and I'm highly confident he does, but Stamann is a very skilled fighter. He just went the distance with Jimmy Rivera prior to that, win over Brian Kelleher. Does also have a draw with Song Yadong. I'm going to pick Merab by a unanimous decision, but I will note this could be a competitive fight, and I think Merab, though, overwhelms him with superior grappling ability, and I'm going to pick him in this one, especially his clinch work and constant pressure. The gas tank from Merab is insane. The next fight on this main card is a very exciting matchup. Sean Strickland has definitely started to make a name for himself since his comeback. Dominated Jack Marshman, and then he comes back 2 weeks later and knocks out Brendan Allen. That was so impressive to beat Allen like that. I mean, you look at Allen, what he just did to Carl Roberson, took him down and dominated. Sean Strickland was out grappling him in the clinch situations. I mean, Sean Strickland is an animal, and he's not a guy to be taken lightly. I think he's making a run at this point towards being a contender. Lost earlier on in his career to Kamaru Usman. He's now 30 years of age, and I do think he's at his best. He takes on Krzysztof Jotko, who brings in a 3-fight win streak. Did have some competitive fights throughout that 3-fight win streak, but still notable. It's 3 fights in a row that he's been successful in. I'm excited to see how this fight really plays out, because with Sean Strickland, you have a guy who's very good with striking. He has excellent boxing, I would say, especially for mixed martial arts, and also has the solid grappling. We saw that against Brendan Allen. Underrated fighter in the UFC is definitely got to be Sean Strickland. I think he's starting to get that recognition. 10 wins by knockout, never been finished. Jotko is a southpaw, but I do think Strickland can mix up the stances a bit and also land that straight down the center line on the southpaw. I'm going to pick Sean Strickland. I think he gets a knockout in the second round here of Krzysztof Jotko, and I think he further pushes himself towards contendership, because he is a guy we have to keep an eye on here. He's always a talented prospect, and it's 22-3 as a pro. And look at these the wins. I mean, it's not like he's beaten nobody. He beat Nordine Taleb, Court McGee. The loss there to Eliziu Zaleski, but he's an animal, and that, I believe, was down in welterweight. He's now up at middleweight, and he looks like a new and improved fighter, and he's going to put it on Jotko here. I'm picking Sean Strickland, and that's a strong confidence knockout pick. I'll probably throw a prop on the knockout. We'll talk more about that bet later in the week when all the props are released. Ion Cutelaba and Dustin Jacoby. That's an interesting fight. Dustin Jacoby is tricky to deal with his kickboxing, especially from range. You look at Cutelaba, he likes to get inside. He likes to throw ferocious elbows. He'll clinch you up. He'll take you down. He's very good with his wrestling, has a high-level background, and he can get you to the ground, and he can control you. Thing is, I do think Dustin Jacoby, being the rangier guy of the two, having the higher-level striking experience, and Cutelaba's willingness to strike is definitely going to be an advantage here for Dustin Jacoby. At plus money, I'm going Jacoby. I think he actually gets a win in this matchup. Cutelaba has a kill or be killed style. I mean, that's how he fights, and we love him for it because he's very entertaining. You look at Cutelaba, he has 12 wins by knockout, just 1 decision, 2 by submission. He's a finisher. Most of his fights are not going the distance. I don't really think this one will either. I think the high-level kickboxing and the takedown defense of Dustin Jacoby are going to get him the victory here. I will say the takedowns may happen, and there may be a couple, but I feel like Jacoby can scramble, get back up to his feet, and he does have good enough hips that I do think he blocks the majority of the takedowns that are thrown his way by Ion Cutelaba. I'm going knockout or TKO, thinking second or third round for Jacoby. Could be earlier. He could definitely hit a counter on Cutelaba. Either way, I do think this is a fireworks fight, and I like the dog in this matchup at the plus 110. This is a very live underdog who I can see winning this fight, and I do believe he can get it done. Next fight is the co-main event. This is a pretty sweet main card, and this co-main event just keeps it coming with sweet action. Cub Swanson versus Giga Chikadze. Both excellent strikers. Swanson, the high-level boxing. You look at Giga Chikadze, very high-level kickboxer. Pretty much perfect technique. Knockout of Jamie Simmons. He's starting to find himself more and more each fight that we see go by. Cub Swanson has looked good in his past 2, beat Daniel Pineda. But here's something to note. Cub Swanson is 5'8", Giga Chikadze 6 feet. Giga Chikadze is excellent from the kickboxing range. He has a 4-inch reach advantage. He is going to piece up Cub Swanson from distance, and I don't believe it'll be easy for Swanson to enter the pocket and look for takedowns. Maybe he will be able to get some, but it's not going to be an easy route to victory for Cub. I'll be honest, I like Giga Chikadze in this fight, though Cub Swanson is a very stern test. He's 37 years old. Giga Chikadze at 32 has just hit his MMA prime, and he's really looking poised to make a run towards at least the top 15. I'm picking Giga Chikadze to get the win here by a unanimous decision, and I think he definitely makes a name for himself with this victory over longtime vet, former WEC top fighter, Cub Swanson. I'm picking Giga Chikadze to get the victory here. At minus 200, I think he's a decent bet. Not the best for the minus 200, but I do think he's a good pickup. He's going to beat Cub Swanson. Now, the main event, Dominick Reyes versus Jiri Prochazka. This is a crazy fight. I can guarantee you I don't see this fight going the distance. Both are finishers. Both are guys that come to fight. You look at Jiri Prochazka, 24 wins by knockout. And he has 27 wins as a pro. This guy is an animal with his punching power. He has a herky-jerky style, which is awkward. It's strange. He keeps his hands down, but he has a ton of punching power. He has high-level movement. From range, though, I will say he lets guys get close into boxing range and he gets hit. Volkan Oezdemir cracked him with some shots. Dominick Reyes from boxing range is dangerous. You look at Reyes, he's a southpaw. He's a good striker in his own right with excellent footwork. He has a very dangerous straight left down the center, and he has nasty leg kicks. I think with the hands, Dominick Reyes is faster. Jiri Prochazka is herky-jerky. It's strange, but he absorbs so many strikes, about 7 per minute. That's a stat to note here. Dominick Reyes can also wrestle. I do think he might mix that wrestling in a bit. You look at Prochazka when he fought King Mo. This is way back in the day. King Mo did put him on his back and then was able to knock him out. Granted, he did beat King Mo in a rematch, but in that first fight, the wrestling, he's definitely improved. He's hittable on the feet. I think Dominick Reyes can do it here. He's at plus 120. I feel like he's being written off too soon right now. I think Jiri Prochazka is an awesome prospect and he has a bright future, but I think that Dominick Reyes gets the win in this fight. I really do. He's training his ass off. He's a tricky matchup for anybody. And at the end of the day, he lost to Jan Blachowicz, who's an absolute animal. I'm going to pick Reyes. I think as a live dog at plus 120, I think he can get it done. And I think he can do it by TKO here. Jiri Prochazka is open to a lot of punches. And I think Dominick Reyes has the boxing to expose that and the speed. I think he'll counter. He'll be patient. And then Jiri Prochazka will get cracked as he's coming in recklessly. Dominick Reyes, knockout victory. I could see it around the second or third round here. I do think this is an excellent fight. I can't wait for the props to be released. One thing I will pretty much guarantee, I don't see this fight going the distance. I think it's going to be a war. I wish there were fans at this event too, because this main event is going to be insane. It is now time that we're going to go over some of the parlays maybe you guys will want to play. No prop bets are out just yet, but we'll see what we can do with parlays because the odds, I mean, it's early in the week. They haven't fully spread just yet, and you can get some good value right now. Let's check it out here. All right, so if you're looking to do a parlay here, which I do really like I want to give you guys the best parlays that I feel will succeed. I feel like that right there, you're looking at these minus 200s, I'd say are pretty lock picks. I think that at plus 207, that's very good value. That is a safer parlay. It's still 3-fight, which is risky, but if you're looking for something that's a little bit more safe, you want to not be as risky out there taking some dogs. But I do think there's value in these dogs on this card. The same as what I said earlier. If you want to pick a dog up, I like Reyes a lot, but I will say if I'm going like what's the first line of dog that I really feel I want to do, it is hard to say because I do think the dogs that I picked are live. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to add Reyes because I have a feeling. 591. That's crazy odds. Am I going to guarantee this hits? How could you? But it's very possible that you could succeed at a plus 591. Maybe a fun little parlay here. Let's clean this up and let's try another one. There's definitely some value though. There's definitely some straight bets that you could potentially pick too if you were looking to do that. Maybe you wanted to just throw money down on one guy. But I feel like those... If I'm gonna give you the one money picks, I think Giga Chikadze is an excellent one money pick. Strickland definitely, Merab, Botelho, like these stronger favorites here. But if you want to make some value in straight money, I think you could throw a little something on TJ Brown, and I think he'll deliver for you. I think Dominick Reyes, especially if you throw that knockout prop bet when that's released, that can really deliver for you. Jacoby, I like him to win this fight as well. I think he's the better counter striker. That's another dog that can deliver. There's some live dogs, and even Jonathan Pearce, who I didn't pick. It's a live fight between him and Benitez, I will definitely say, and those odds don't tell the story of this fight. But let me give you one last final parlay to go. We're going to go for a more riskier parlay, but something that I see is definitely being possible of success here. Pick up Strickland and Michelides right now. That's minus 250. We're also going to add in Jacoby for the plus 314. And we're going to throw Reyes at the plus 831. Can I pull this parlay off. We're going to try on this one. At least I am. I do think we're going to get this one. It's a crazier one. I also might play around with throwing that just to get us into the thousands. So Giga, Chikadze, Reyes, Jacoby, Strickland, and Michelides. If you're looking for a crazier 5-fight parlay with high risk, high reward, which I really do believe is possible because I think our dogs are very live tonight, that's the one right there. If you take off Giga Chikadze, you're still looking at plus 831. If you're not feeling as ballsy, obviously, plus 314 with these three is still an excellent parlay with a dog on it. But if you're not even looking for a dog, I think that you can take off Jacoby and you want to be safer. You want definitely more of the guarantees. I like Giga Chikadze. I'm going to throw down also one more, Pinheiro, plus 377 for a four-way favorite pick, and also not insanely widespread favorites. At least some of them are still in the 100s there. But overall, some decent parlays. We'll talk more about them later on in the week. So make sure you guys stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, as well as that more parlay-based betting portion of it. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Follow my social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, got tons of videos coming out. So make sure you guys turn on that bell notification as well. And I will see you all in the next video.